Straight ahead on Law and Crime Daily. A sex offender is accused of killing a 10-year-old girl and dumping her body, leaving family members to deal with the devastating aftermath.
He was like, well, I just woke up and she's gone.
His own son called to testify and forced to withstand a sometimes heated cross-examination.
Either you were there when she was killed or you weren't.
Our legal analysts are breaking down the testimony so far in the Henry Dinkins trial as a judge hears evidence that could put the defendant away for life. Law and Crime Daily, covering court cases from coast to coast. Welcome everybody to Law and Crime Daily. I'm Jesse Weber. We heard detailed and sometimes emotional testimony Monday in the case of Henry Dinkins. He's the man accused of killing a young girl. Breasia Terrell and her brother were staying with Dinkins and his girlfriend Andrea overnight in Davenport, Iowa in 2020. And at some point, it is believed that Dinkins took Breasia from the apartment and killed her. Her disappearance prompted a massive search, but her remains weren't found until nearly a year after she was reported missing, when fishermen spotted her body in a pond about 25 miles away from Davenport in March of 2021. Now, at the time, Dinkins was locked up in an unrelated charge, but it turns out he's a sex offender who had been released early from prison but was required to register, and when he didn't do that, police arrested him. When Breasia's remains were found, they charged him with kidnapping and murder. Breasia's brother, who is now 11 years old, was called to the stand Friday and Monday to talk about the night that Breasia went missing and what he saw in the hours after that. But on cross-examination, his stories didn't seem to match up.
How was your relationship with her?
Great.
Were the two of you close?
Yes.
How close?
Really close.
What were Henry and Andrea doing on the bed?
Watching her.
Watching Bree?
Yeah.
Did you find that weird?
Yes.
Why?
Because I was in the living room alone and they were in the back room.
At some point, did Henry come back to that apartment?
Yes.
What did he look like when he came back to that apartment?
He had a white shirt on and some shorts.
How was he acting?
A little weird.
When he came back to the apartment, that first time you saw him, did you see Bree with him?
No.
Was it at that point that you started to cry?
Yes.
Why were you crying?
Because she wasn't there.
When you say she, who are you talking about?
My sister.
Either you were there when she was killed or you weren't.
I said, I guess.
I don't accept that answer, sir. Either you were there when she was shot or you weren't.
I was there. Damn.
So you were there.
Yes.
You saw your dad shoot Breasia Terrell.
Yes.
Okay. And how come you didn't say that when the prosecutor asked you? Because it's not the truth, right?
Everything I say is true.
All right, I want to bring in my co-host, legal analyst Brian Buckmeyer, Terry Austin. Terry, I'm going to start with you. That part is confusing to me. Why, when he was on direct and being asked by the prosecution, why didn't they ask him, did you see the defendant shoot your sister? He wasn't asked that question. Then the defense questions him about it. How come he didn't bring it up? Can you clarify what happened here?
I really think the prosecution should have asked that very question. Remember, we're in front of a judge, not a jury. But I do think it would have helped to clarify the sequence of events, even with the judge. I think she did not ask that question because she didn't want to upset DL, is what they're calling him, or Deterres.
But that's the biggest point of this question. Did the defendant kill the victim?
I agree, but she was trying to establish the timeline. She established that he was there. She established that he poured bleach in a bush. She established that, you know, all of these things leading up to it, but she didn't ask that direct question. And part of the reason on redirect, we find out that he didn't want to talk about it, that he was afraid. He was 8 at the time, so he didn't initially tell the police. At one point, he did tell the police. She didn't ask on direct. He mentioned it on cross. She mentioned it again on redirect. So he does say that he saw his father actually shoot. And in fact, the father's girlfriend was there as well.
It feels like his credibility is called into question significantly.
And that's what the defense is doing. I know it'd be a lot better if there was a jury there because you could add a little bit more theatrics, but I think even for the judge, and like I tell most people when they're arguing in front of a court, it's not just the judge in front of you, it's also the appellate judge as well. You make this argument to say no one in their right mind should credit this witness's testimony, because if you can lie about this major issue as you're hinting at, how are you telling the truth about anything else, especially when you're talking about your father's reaction when he comes back into the home without Breasia?
And his testimony, though, about the Dinkins' strange behavior after when he came home is a little weird, right? That hurts the defendant.
Oh, I think it definitely hurts the defendant. He wants to prove that his father did it because he knows that the father left the house and he didn't come back with her. He knows that this happened and no one else could have done it. So the defendant absolutely is acting like, I have no idea, she just disappeared, and the brother knows better.
All right, well, we're going to continue this discussion because I think this is a fascinating case and really interesting witness, but still ahead on Law&Crime Daily, our coverage of testimony in the Henry Dinkins trial will continue.
She was a true teller, very caring. She helped out a lot, secondary mom in the house for the most part. She was real good.
What the victim's mother said on the stand as she recalled the day her only daughter was reported missing. And welcome back to Law&Crime Daily, everybody. We're taking a look at the testimony in the Henry Dinkins trial. Dinkins is accused of kidnapping and killing a 10-year-old girl in Iowa back in 2020. Breasia Terrell was the half-sister of Dinkins' son. They had the same mother. Aisha Langford testified about her children in court on Monday, and she confirmed that Breasia and her brother, referred to as DL, had an impromptu sleepover at the apartment that Dinkins shared with his girlfriend. Prosecutors say sometime during the night, Dinkins took Breasia from the apartment and killed her. Her body was found by fishermen in a pond almost a year later. Breasia's mother, Aisha Langford, testified on Monday about the initial reports that Dinkins couldn't find Breasia and the search by police.
I noticed Mr. Dinkins' Impala flying down the opposite way, making a really hard turn on, I think it's a left turn on Eastern.
Okay. What type of vehicle was he driving?
He was driving in a maroon Impala with tinted windows.
Okay. And then did you pass him when you saw him heading east?
Yes, and
What did you do?
I made a U-turn.
And then at that point in time, describe what you did.
I was speeding behind him, honking the horn. I was calling his phone, and when I finally got him on the phone, he said that he was headed to Jersey Meadows because they wanted to talk to him out there. And I was still on his bumper, honking the horn, and we had pulled over by the McDonald's.
Do you recognize the depictions in those photographs?
I do.
How do you recognize that?
I recognized it because those were photos that was shown to me to try to identify if that was a flip-flop that might have been hers.
Okay. Describe what happened when you were shown those photographs.
They had told me, and it wasn't hers, and they had walked off, and it was already dark time, and I just fell out because I'm like, dang, I can't go in. We can't stop looking for her. She's still out there. I can't go in. And I just fell out.
Okay, I want to start with you, Brian, on this, because the big issue that I see is the fact that she basically let her daughter be with Dinkins. We can't escape the fact that he's a registered sex offender. That factor, is that going to help the defense?
Daughter and son.
Right.
Both of the children, because this is the mother that connects the two of them. And so I think, at least for the defense, there's a lot of bad facts that she's putting out there. But for me, I would at least say, but regardless of what his background is and what he's accused of, prior to this, you trusted him enough to leave him not with one, but with both of your children. I would always bring it back there, because at least at some point in time, because at least at some point you got to ask, why would he do this? Why would he watch the two children to take one and go murder them? I think from this witness, you could probably try to get a counterbalancing effect of saying, yeah, but no, you believed that he was safe with these children. Why did you leave them with him?
But how many times do we cover cases where fathers and mothers kill their children out of nowhere? It shocks the conscience, it shocks everybody, so it might not play that much. Even if she left the children with him, at the same time, he could be capable of doing this.
Look, the defense was definitely trying to say it was her fault. She should have known better. She wasn't a good mom. She didn't take care of the kids the way she should. But I think they established on the redirect and on direct, frankly, she's a good mom. She thought that he was fine. The children had gone with him before, both of them. Now remember, this is DL's father and it's Breasia's stepdad, and he actually had been in the home before for a few months before he left the home. So everyone knows who he is, and I don't think they established well enough that the mother knew he was a sex offender. Yes, he'd been in jail, but she didn't know the details of that. And in fact, the grandmother was the one who let the children go. So she wouldn't have done it if she had known that. That's what she said.
We also talked about the fact this is in front of a judge, not a jury. It's a bench trial. The sex offender aspect, we've talked about it before. When a judge looks at this factor and whether or not the mother should have left the children with him and whether or not she knew he was a sex offender, how much do you think that part is going to affect the judge's determination?
I'm a little jaded as a defense attorney.
Yeah.
The law would suggest that a judge who has seen many cases like this before, not just up to trial, but also in negotiation, look at it, says he was 17, and according to the allegations, he was with someone who was under 10. Now he's in his 50s. This is not a sexual registration case where he did it 5 years ago to someone this age. There's not a pattern between the registration and this charge. I'd hope the judge would separate the two.
All right. Well, I think this is a fascinating case, and I really don't know which way it's going to go. But I'll tell you what, we have a lot more to cover.